Welcome to Postwave. You're here with Eric and Trevor.
What's up? So we haven't really done an episode about current events and the virus directly yet, but we thought it was time to kind of talk about what it's been like for us as musicians and music teachers to live through this thing and how it's affected like our daily lives and our careers and kind of the way we think about what we do in the world.
And also how it relates to broader changes in the music industry that are already happening.
Yeah, it came at a very, very interesting time in the history of recorded music, which I'll remind people has only been around for like about 100 years. Like we take it for granted as this like thing that's just a fixture of the world and has been around like, as long as anyone can remember, basically, because it has been for anyone who's alive right now. But like it's not written down anywhere that there needs to be like a recorded music industry, and that that's just like what music is and how the industry functions.
Yeah, both historically and evolutionarily, the purpose of music has been far from anything that could be commodified. It's been a means of connecting as a group of people. It's been a means of cohering and sharing an identity.
Yeah, something to like gather around and kind of like recharge with.
Yeah, and in the creation of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
The barrier between the people who create and the people who consume never was so strong as it is now.
Yeah. Although I mean, you could say that like the ubiquity of like cheaply available software and stuff has like made a lot more people try creating it, like try their hand at creating it, like more than would otherwise.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's everyone's kind of like isolated. Like if you're not, because a lot of those people fall into the category of like not really collaborating with anyone.
Right.
Just kind of on their own. So like the community aspect of it isn't so much there. We've talked about this a little bit already, but so maybe we should just talk about like what it was like for both of us back in March when this whole thing kind of started. And I know you said we talked about this earlier, and you said that not a whole lot changed.
Yeah.
for you, but for me it was kind of dramatic because basically I was slated to play like I don't know 5 or 6 different shows during South by Southwest in Austin, and they ended up canceling the whole festival, at least all the official stuff, like I don't know, a week or 2 before it was supposed to happen, when there like weren't any cases in Austin yet, and not even really in Texas. And everyone was like, oh, this is so crazy, like why are they doing this, like I'm still playing, hashtag I'm still playing, or whatever it was. And not to sound like smug or whatever, but I was like, yeah, that makes sense that they would cancel it because people, were coming from out of town. It's not just the music; it's like a conference and people staying in hotels and just a lot of people mixing and whatever. And then it was like I think the week before, like there were like 2 cases that popped up in Austin, 2 or 3. And then gradually everything started to just like shut down. And I backed out of my gigs, I think the day after the first couple of cases showed up, and it literally went from like 2 to 4 within the first day, like doubling and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, people were initially like, you know, kind of brushing it off and not really thinking it was a big deal, which kind of freaked me out a little bit, just because the nature of exponential growth is like unintuitive, and I think people kind of underestimated how quick it could take off. I have to say it was it's a little bit of just a stress relief for me, because I had one gig in particular that I was like super stressed about and just kind of wasn't that excited about anymore, and it was gonna be like a really stressful week. So mixed feelings there.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's interesting, and maybe something that people don't think about a lot is how stress affects musicians and how that stress affects the music.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's interesting, because I think people have like this perception, right, like that music is hard and that anyone could do it, but that like the people who do it obviously have it so together that it's not stressful for them. Mm-hmm. Like it's all like joy and fun and happy, even if it's hard work, you know. Which ideally that's true. If you can get to that place, then like yay, good for you. Or if you can get to that place like most of the time. But yeah, I mean, what happens to me is if I'm like stressed out about a music thing, that I tend not to like want to listen to other music, or like because it's all just kind of clouded by like thinking about the other thing, and you know, solution to that is to practice more. But sometimes you're like, I've already practiced like 2 hours today on these, like, you know, few songs. And
well, do you think that maybe a prominent source of that stress comes from it being in a do you think a prominent source of that stress might be that we are part of a free market capitalist society, where in order to put food on the table and save for your future and that kind of thing, you have to do the gig and you have to do it good, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's not really where the stress was coming from for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because all these gigs, I wasn't like really making any money, like any significant money from them.
Why were
it
you
was more
doing
just
them?
like, well, it's the thing where like, you know, well, one, to just, you know, get exposure, and like, you know, the more gigs the more gigs you say yes to, the more the chance that like someone will, you know, see you and want you to play at another gig.
Yeah, so it's just kind of the same thing, one step removed, right? It's like maybe you're not doing it for the money right now, but it's so that you can make this a career, right?
Not, I mean, like basically, so like back in February and March, when this was all going on, I could have just kept playing with the main guy. So like the 2 or 3 main bands I was like a regular with, which was Elijah Zane and the Peacemakers, and the Eastside Blues Syndicate and Soulfinger, and which were kind of my core band. And if I just kept doing that and teaching lessons and playing piano at the Waldorf school that I was playing at, I would have been like fine on income pretty much indefinitely. But it's more about, you know, getting opportunities with different kinds of bands and stuff. And the band that ended up stressing me out was like a prog rock kind of band, which was exciting for me because it's one of my, you know, favorite genres, as we've talked about. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. But the leader ended up being kind of hard to work with, and just, you know, running like 3-hour rehearsals that ended up turning to like 4 hours, and like the bass player was driving down from Dallas and he was like late sometimes, and so it would just, and we were having rehearsals at my house, so like I couldn't really, you know, do anything about it. And yeah, he was just not very respectful of like people's time, I guess. So there was that, and then and then the music. He was like trying to get me to like learn all the keyboard parts and all the horn parts and do backup vocals because I'm the keyboard player. And so like when the horns aren't there, he wanted me to learn the horn parts for that. And I was trying to like do this all by memory, and I had like choir rehearsal stuff going on. It was just, and I was slacking a little bit, honestly, but like I had a lot on my plate. So not entirely his fault at all, but it just kind of added to the stress of the situation.
Interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, we just had one, like we had like a rehearsal with just him and me and the bass player, like a 3-hour rehearsal on a day after we had already had like a 3-hour rehearsal. I forget if that had been the one where the bass player was late or not. And it was fun. Like we learned all the background vocal parts, or I learned the parts, and like it was coming along easier than I expected. And then I had like the weekend, and we had another rehearsal on I guess maybe it was the following Monday. Yeah, and I kind of like lost some of the parts and like thought I had them down better than I did, and I was just kind of messing up. And it was like the penultimate rehearsal before like the show, and it was just like it was stressing me out. And
so maybe a lot of your stress came from working with particular individuals.
Yeah, I mean that was most of it. Yeah, for me it was just that kind of that one thing.
But I think a lot of musicians do face stress for other reasons than this one guy that was hard to work with, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is people who need to put food on the table, and playing music is the means by which they can do that, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
And so how does that stress affect the music?
I mean, I think it makes people play it safer.
I have a quote here from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, where he says, "Work is love made visible, and if you cannot work with love but only with distaste, it is better that you should leave your work and sit at the gate of the temple and take alms of those who work with joy. For if you bake bread with indifference, you bake a bitter bread that feeds but half a man's hunger. And if you grudge the crushing of the grapes, your grudge distills a poison in the wine. And if you sing, though as angels, and love not the singing, you muffle man's ears to the voices of the day and the voices of the night."
Damn. What was the author's name again?
Khalil Gibran.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, this book is incredible. One of the, I think, most pure sources of wisdom that's on the market today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that definitely resonates with me. I mean, kind of goes along with no matter what you think is like the most important thing in the world to be doing, like if you're gonna either burn out at it or not do a good job because you end up hating it, then like it's not the right thing for you to do, and you need to either like re-examine how you can do it with joy or like find something else to do.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, for me, pursuing music as a career has definitely made it kind of a way more of a love-hate relationship than it was for me like throughout school.
Mm-hmm. So I wonder if maybe there is something that just doesn't work right with having free market capitalism with music production. There's always going to be that grinding in a lot of musicians between their their love and their need for survival.
Yeah, no, I agree. And maybe we'll get to this more later, but I think the answer is to have more situations where artists can be given enough to live on, so that they can, have the space to create art without pressure of just trying to scrape by and make a living.
Yeah, like a universal basic income.
Yeah. But also, like, I'm sure there's a reason this isn't already happening, but like, streaming services establishing like contracts with artists directly and saying, hey, we're going to pay you like this much for the year just to make the music that you want to make. And I mean, maybe establish some kind of quota or not, but some kind of like we will make sure you're living comfortably, if not lavishly, and in return, keep making music.
Yeah, wow, that would be incredible. It's like the ideal of what the record industry was supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of pie in the sky, and it is, you're right, it is pretty much like the old model of, once someone was big enough, they would basically just get like they would just get supported by the record company and can make enough that they didn't really have to worry too much about, paying the bills.
But maybe, do you think the reason why no one's doing that yet is because it's more expensive than just piggybacking off of the work of the artists and not paying them?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, they got to maximize, shareholder value and all that good stuff.
But that maybe one of the points of this article that we read is that, could you introduce the article actually?
Oh yeah. Yeah, so this article we're talking about is on the Esquire magazine website, and it's titled "Coronavirus Might Kill the Music Industry. Maybe it needed to die." Dun, dun, dun. But it's centered around the fact that, like we mentioned, right now that the music industry is still kind of in a state of upheaval after first Napster and kind of music piracy just kind of made all music available for free, potentially. And then all these streaming services came along in the last decade or so and started making that legal. And even before that, I mean, just, the fact that you could like buy a CD and then rip it onto your computer and then sell it on Amazon for, like basically full price if you wanted to. Or, but you could just buy used CDs that wouldn't give anything back to the artist. I think that definitely contributed to it as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, given that the state of the music industry is what it is, it's tempting to want to believe that that now that the global pandemic has just driven it so completely off a cliff that people will accept some like radical solutions to the problems.
Yeah, because maybe they won't have any other choice. The companies won't have any other choice but to pay musicians or else not have musicians.
Yeah, or not have good musicians.
But when have they ever cared about that?
Sorry. High quality produced musicians.
Mm-hmm. With big tits.
Well, what was happening before COVID was that artists were having to rely pretty much entirely on ticket sales to live shows to support themselves. and that led a lot of acts to have to just pursue these like relentless tour schedules, just to make ends meet. And it kind of means that although like the recorded album is kind of like the central product that's like defines the artist and all that, it's kind of just become like a marketing tool for like the live shows as far as like a business perspective goes.
Even though it's excuse me, even though it's the main way that people engage with their music is through listening to it, live streaming or downloading it.
Yeah, like if you think about like all the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into producing something like that, and all the all the money the artist has to spend creating it, usually, it's really odd that it's so flipped.
Do you think there's a problem though with actually independent music producers, because music has been only the last decade or two, it's become so much more approachable for people to produce, master their own music and create a finished product. Do you think that could actually pose a problem with people trying to make do, so they put in a lot of effort, create this music, and then go straight to the digital streaming where they get no money?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, I myself have just put out like a song and all the streaming services just to kind of have something there without going through like the rigorous like have someone else mix and master it, just kind of seeing what I can do myself. Yeah, I mean, it definitely creates a risk that there's going to be a lot of like wasted potential out there, that like music that if people kind of took the time and went through all the steps, that it could have like reached so many more people. Although I think that's more of a maybe more of like a marketing thing, like with how you promote.
Yeah, if people are maybe more intentional and don't just go straight to Spotify, maybe they have a better chance.
Yeah, you gotta like build the audience before you can expect anyone to listen to your stuff there in like any huge numbers.
I heard a stat that something like 85% of all of the music on Spotify has 0 plays.
Yeah, it's pretty depressing.
Yeah, which brings me to another point. At the beginning of this article, they mention a truism that, and I quote from the article, "While Spotify may have gutted the income you make from records, it makes it easier for people to find your music." What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's I think it's true. It's true in the sense that if you like shared something on social media that people didn't have to go to the record store to buy it, or even just buy it in iTunes or on Amazon or whatever, as like an MP3, they can just go to whatever app they use, and it's like right there, and they can like save it or whatever and listen to it as much as they want. But I think what they're trying, or what they're talking about, is that like what they're talking about is people finding it without you promoting it. Like just people are going to be like browsing on these services and are gonna like find you that way.
But isn't there a problem with that?
Oh, totally.
Because if everyone's on Spotify or similar platforms, then there's just too much stuff out there. No one's going to just stumble upon you.
Yeah, especially if everyone's being like hyper prolific because that's kind of what it takes. And I don't know if you saw, this is in the news a while ago, but the CEO of Spotify did this interview where he look at the actual quote. I mean, they were talking about the thing that's like repeated and repeated, how musicians get like, fractions of a cent for streams, and rightly so, that people should be pissed off about that. Yeah, I mean, he said you can't record music once every 3 to 4 years and think that's going to be enough, and that the people who aren't doing well in streaming are predominantly people who want to release music the way it used to be released, and also that that people are in public they'll like bash Spotify, but privately they're like happier with the streaming revenues. Easy claim to make there.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Oh, I make so much on my streaming revenue. Yeah, it's inevitable as musicians. When you were on our social media, every once in a while you'll see one of our people we went to school with or a professor. They'll post a screenshot of their income broken down by venues, and there's $30 in one category, a few $100s in another category, and then like 2 cents in the streaming.
Yeah. I mean the sad thing though is that like streaming itself is never going away, now that it's like everyone has that perception that that's kind of the default, or like the thing to beat. I am curious if like almost everyone was signed up for $10 a month or whatever, what that would look like if they would actually rebalance it so that record companies and the streaming services themselves weren't getting so much. Like I feel like that could actually be sustainable, because like that's, I mean, when I was still buying albums regularly, that's kind of what it was. It was like an album or two per month.
Yeah. I personally still do it that way. I don't have a Spotify account.
Yeah. Yeah, I do at the moment, but I'm thinking about switching to Tidal or something.
Yeah, right. What's the deal with Tidal?
They just give much better royalty payments to artists, and they I think for $10 a month, it's like standard definition, but they offer like a high definition streaming thing for I think $20 a month.
Oh sure, bleed the audio files.
Yeah. bleed the audio files.
As in PHILES.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the other thing people complain about with streaming, is that it's making people used to the sound of low quality audio.
Right. I saw there was a conference on about mixing and mastering. All the audio engineers go to this conference, and by far the most popular speaker at the conference was talking about how streaming platforms automatically apply certain compression to all of the sound to make it even volume, but that drastically affects the way that you have to master the sound to make the best sound. And it kind of completely tips on the head a lot of the existing theories, which are centered around like creating large dynamic variability and a big sound. You can't do that anymore if it's all being compressed and levelized.
Oh yeah, you should send me that, because I think I maybe saw the same thing on YouTube, where he like played like a couple different styles of music, and one that would traditionally have been like, I think it was like a country song or something, and then some kind of like jazz fusion thing, and then I forget what the third genre was, but something where it was like the first one was less compressed, the second one was more, the third one was the most compressed, and then he played then he played the way that they would be like normalized in the streaming service, and it was completely flipped, that the most like limited sausageified one seemed quietest.
Yeah.
Which is maybe a good thing, because I mean it's not like bands constantly trying to sound louder just like from the mastering on the radio is necessarily like a good thing.
Yeah.
You can just do the trick that Mars Volta do, though, where the first part of the song is like really, really quiet.
Yeah.
Do you want to help out some starving artists during these trying times? You can do that in a couple of simple ways. Just tell your friends about us, share our episodes on social media, give us a nice review, smash that subscribe button.
Smash the subscribe.
So bringing it back to the pandemic, have you personally noticed any change in your relationship with the way you listen to music and consume music, or relate to?
Nope. So some context here. I am on a little island with about 2 music venues. No one comes to the island to perform. So it's just like the same 3 bands that play the same 2 bars every whatever. I have not noticed a big change in the way that I engage with music. Even with my business of teaching music, well, there was definitely a drop off in number of students at the time that the virus hit, but I have retained about half my students and slowly building back up. So, I mean, basically the only difference is that I now do a lot of my lessons virtually now, so that I have a lot of screen time with laggy video and compressed audio. That's about it.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I was like pretty stressed right around the time this all hit back in March with South by Southwest, and as we discussed on our first episode, I've also been going through kind of like an existential crisis as far as like why I'm doing music and what the meaning of it all is, and I feel like it was kind of a George Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life moment, where the universe like showed me like, oh, you wish this didn't exist, or you think this isn't important? Like, here's how it would be. and like a pretty eerie way.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, makes you wonder about like backwards causality and like just destiny.
Trevor, the entire coronavirus is your fault. It all happened just to show you this.
Well, I mean, the flip side of that is that everyone else is a zombie, and I'm the only one who's
Of
who's
course.
actually aware.
Uh,
So, I don't think either one is
mm.
true, but
It's Breakfast of Champions, right? Kurt Vonnegut.
oh, I read that book, but it's been a long time.
There's some
I forget
CEO
exactly
who
about that.
gets convinced of the idea that he's the only one who's real and everyone else is just there to please him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need to read that book again.
Mm.
Yeah.
We could do an episode on that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to have an excuse to read some Vonnegut. So yeah, but I keep thinking about something you said in our first episode. I kept thinking about something you said in our first episode about just how if you're living in like a very kind of austere urban environment like New York or something where there's not a lot of nature around, that music and art can kind of help humanize things and make things feel more cozy and less artificial and all that stuff.
Mm.
And I definitely find that, you know, when I'm just like in my house or in my apartment, you know, 24/7 for all intents and purposes, that uh, it's something I really need, and something I that like recorded music definitely does for me.
I think that's really true. And I feel the same way a lot of the time. That's one of the things that struck me so much about when you proposed this. Like, how has the coronavirus affected the way we engage with music? And what was so striking to me was how little it had changed things, because the main effect of it is keeps people isolated away from each other in their own homes, experiencing the media alone in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what our society is kind of already like, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just a sad loser.
on an island with no live music scene.
Yeah. No, but all that aside, I think there's an absolute certain trend in our society towards separation between individuals and media entertainment as a means of filling that void or attempting to.
Yeah, and the other side of that is that you can, because there's so much content out there, you can just dial in exactly what you want, and you don't really have to care if you know enough people want to go see that, to have that person book a show in your area or anything like that. You can just, you know, find whatever little niche you want and like occupy yourself with it.
But isn't there something kind of sad about that? I mean, it's one-sided. It's consumptive.
I mean, yeah, but I mean,
Like,
there's also someone else on the other side of that who's making it and also has, you know, similar tastes and they're like communicating with you, I think, you know, a pretty meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, not to bash it, I think there's really cool stuff going on with, like, this is how I produce my music and talking through and answering questions, those kind of live events. And yeah, you get the niche audience of all the people who are into the music production who want to listen. But I think if you're relying on that in place of genuine human connection, then eventually that well is going to run dry.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Although I will say something I noticed just the other day, when this new music choir I'm a part of, Inversion Ensemble, did a live stream, like debuting the recording we recently made of the music that was supposed to be on our final concert for the season, but it ended up getting canceled because of COVID. But we all recorded our parts individually, and then our director spent, you know, like 100+ hours like editing everything together in Logic and lining up all the S's and the T's and whatever. And I don't know, there's something, especially as a composer, like I didn't have a piece on the concert, but like being able to see people commenting on moments in your piece in real time is pretty cool. Because I mean, like, someone could come up to you after the concert and be like, "Oh yeah, I like that one part with the some unspecific description." Sometimes, but there's something kind of cool about seeing it in real time and directly like that.
That's awesome.
Maybe that's like an ego, just like an ego feeding thing. But I think there's something to that. It's like pretty wholesome.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think maybe you really can have genuine human connection in certain streaming contexts.
Yeah.
Makes me think about when I was a kid, when I would be on the computer playing whatever video game online and chatting with my friends constantly, and my mom would come over and like, "Why are you on the computer all the time? You need to be out socializing with people." And I say, "Mom, I am talking with people."
What were you playing? Like
RuneScape
games? RuneScape, yeah. Yeah, and I know my girlfriend Maddie, I don't know if she goes on Tumblr at all anymore or just like less frequently, but she's definitely developed like pretty like nuanced and like deep relationships with people she's met on there who just share like really like particular interests and stuff. And it's not like like rich meaningful relationships can happen online, even if whether they're like drawn out or just kind of one-off interactions or whatever.
I think where the challenge comes in is when you try to incorporate it into something that's monetized, like your career as a musician.
Yeah.
If there's money exchanging hands, that makes it harder to have a genuine connection. Or that's actually not true. I'm going to take that back, because I think about some of my students, and sure, there's definitely a genuine, meaningful connections that's happening there. I will say, though, that there is definitely a level of separation that's inherent in that kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm. Because of the money?
Yeah, because of the money. And I mean, that's a part of the necessity, but also because of the exchange of energies. If one person is being paid, then they may be incentivized to endure things that otherwise they wouldn't have the patience for.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like to think the enduring things comes out of just wanting to see the student through like whatever block they're experiencing. But
you
there's definitely
but
there's
at
a
a
limit.
certain point, like if you have a student who, even after a long time, is showing no signs of starting to practice ever.
Yeah.
There's only so much energy you can put into that without feeling like you need the monetary compensation to make it worth your while.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I try to get in the mindset of like, especially with with adults too, but like with kids, like you're giving them this kind of like one-on-one interaction, and like teaching them to do something that they probably aren't getting that kind of thing hardly at all in the rest of their life. I mean, that's true even when it's in-person lessons, but I think it's a like a relationship that can be like pretty significant, even if the student doesn't totally see it that way.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back to my own teachers when I was growing up, David Osuna and Dewey Marler, they were definitely very influential to me, even in the stretches of time when I wasn't practicing.
Yeah.
There's a popular YouTuber by the name of Tom Scott. Have you seen any of his stuff?
I don't think I have.
It's good. It's very kind of broad audience informational kind of thing. But he did this one episode where he talked about how strange it was that the expectation had sort of become not that he was sharing the information, but that he was sharing his own personality, and that is what drew fans and led people to keep coming back and engaging. Not that they liked the material he was producing, but that they started to feel like they had a connection with him, like an interpersonal connection.
Mm-hmm.
And he found that really kind of off-putting and troubling, because there really was no interpersonal connection. It's a one-way street.
Yeah, it's that whole parasocial relationship thing.
Yeah.
That people talk about a lot, which is, I mean, at the same time that it's not the best thing in the world. I mean, there's something cool about the fact that that's possible for one person to give all these people that sense, even if it's it could be somewhat misguided.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I mean, in one sense, I think it can be a harmless and a beneficial thing. You have heroes who inspire you, and you get to know their work intimately, and you start to feel like you know them in a certain way. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have an awareness that there is that level of separation there that's inherent to that kind of dynamic, then you can get led into a trap.
Yeah, and then just get kind of placated with not having that many actual real relationships in your life.
Yeah.
That go beyond that.
It's that phenomena of media taking the place of genuine interpersonal connection that we were talking about.
Right. I guess one thing that's occurred to me is another way that people can kind of combat the loss of revenue from streaming is just to encourage people more to get out to live shows, is create more and more music that's not like released as recordings, like material that's only performed live, or like radically different versions of songs that don't really have a recorded analog.
Yeah, right. That's something that I wanted to ask you, Trevor. Do you think that pre-recorded tracks inherently has a level of separation between the listener and the music?
Totally. I mean, it gets a little more complicated with electronic music, where the whole thing has to be kind of produced and tailored and sculpted in a DAW. But yeah, I mean, with a band that's just some people with their instruments, even if those instruments are electronic, then I think there is kind of a layer of separation between like the clean, polished, kind of refined studio final product and the actual experience of like seeing humans perform something in front of you.
Definitely. It kind of takes away the back and forth that you have in the live moment. There's a shared energy that you can't have.
Yeah, it's all about the back and forth. I forget if that's a Kurt Vonnegut thing or not. There's some there's some novel where they keep referring to it as back and forth.
Yeah. Horizontal gene transfer. Just all the really horrible metaphors.
Actually, they're euphemisms.
Thanks.
So I'm curious, like, I mean, I guess this is predicting like future events in science and medicine, which neither of us can really do that well. But like, do you think, like, how long do you think this is gonna last? And then like, how do you think music will adapt if this lasts for like, say, like 5 years or something, or like 10 years or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, from all I've heard, it's not going away. We're not going to have a vaccine within 5 years. And because humans suck at coordinating, we can't all just like chill out for 2 weeks and then it's gone. Right? Like, couldn't we do that?
Yeah.
Couldn't we all just
No, we
say,
totally.
like,
I mean, it would have to be a little longer than 2 weeks, but I've heard like if everyone could just stay put for like 6 weeks, then we would basically be fine.
yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. And I still don't understand the people who are saying, "Oh, we can't do that because business," and like, meanwhile, like it's either that or like years of just like the same shitty situation.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, like I think it would be great, but I do think it is pretty idealistic until we have a utopian society, because there's a lot of people out on the heels who have to make it work day by day, and they can't worry about little things like disease if their main concern is just like eating dinner tonight, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be like, I mean, it wouldn't be feasible to do this like in the entire world, but like the U.S. could maybe feasibly, like, or maybe like state by state, like say we're everyone stay in your houses, we're gonna like deliver food to you, we'll like pay your rent, pay your mortgage for that time.
I mean, again, I think that the impression that we have as like fairly well off, I mean, we're not wealthy by any means, but we're doing okay economically, and everyone around us is doing okay. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that about half of Americans are living in poverty, and a decent percentage of those are living in extreme poverty, where you're not going to have people coming by and delivering food to them at their apartments. You know,
right? Well, no, I'm not saying that they would pay for it. I'm saying like the U.S. government would. I mean, that's what I think that's what they did in Wuhan. Like the government like delivered food to people's houses and like imposed an actual lockdown.
What if you don't have a house? What if you live in a nebulous slum with like a whole bunch of other people, and the police don't go there because it's too violent?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have a point, but like something like that could happen for like I don't know, large sectors of like cities and
I mean, it's tempting, and I would love that to be the case, but I think the fact remains that we're not going to have that sort of coordination.
Yeah. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, but it would be nice.
Sure would. So the question then, how is this going to affect us? And I think eventually people are, to a certain extent, going to go back to life as normal, regardless of the fact that it means that the virus will spread. I think that there will be a resurgence of outbreak as people finally realize, no, it's not going to go away when the fall hits. You know, it didn't go away when the spring came. It didn't come away over the summer. It's not going to go away in the fall, and it's not going to go away the next year. So it's something that we're going to have to adapt to, which means eventually people becoming exposed to it, and then in time, which is kind of a realize that there's a lot of who will be killed and horribly affected by this happening. But I think it's inevitable, and I think that we could probably start thinking about it now with intention about how to approach that to minimize the damage and build up the antibodies so that we don't have to let this affect us forever.
Yeah, and I did see something. I guess this was a few weeks ago now. It was in the New York Times and like a bunch of other places. But there was a study that said it the boundary for herd immunity might be as low as like 50%, which would be
herd immunity. Can you explain that to me?
So that's like if enough people get it, and usually the number I saw was like 70 or 90, but if that many people get it, then the virus can't spread because there's not enough new hosts. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And that's like, and like, and some countries like initially the UK and I think Sweden still has this policy, but thought that was just the way to go from the beginning, and so they were actively trying to get people like infected.
Yeah.
But
get
I mean,
over with.
Yeah, but I mean, you still run into like the hospital surge problem, or even if that's your goal, then like you could still just cause people to die, even not from COVID, just from not being able to get the treatment they need for other stuff. So
yeah, it's a complicated issue.
Yeah.
So let's sidestep that, and how will this affect the music industry?
Or just, I mean, not even, well, yeah, just like, I think performing arts in general.
Performing arts.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people who are trying to make a living in the performing arts will no longer be trying to make a living in the performing arts. Unfortunately, I think that there's already a lot about the amount of work available in these fields that's kind of spurred on by the universities who want to earn a profit by getting students paying tuition, and so they'll kind of beef up the stats about how easy it is to get a job when you graduate. One of the things that was striking to me that I learned in the music entrepreneurship certificate that I did with Dr. Jeffrey Nitsch at the University of Colorado Boulder was that only 15% of music students who graduate will go on to have a career in the industry.
Damn. Is that like at all, or is it like for some amount of time?
I think at all, although
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if I would count.
Yeah, I don't know. Hard to say. I don't know how they did that. I mean, you're out there, you're doing things, you're getting gigs at South by Southwest.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I could have kind of kept going indefinitely had I not had a crisis and this whole thing happened.
Yeah. But I'm also pretty sure that figure includes like teachers, independent and school teachers, and all the other music related jobs. Yeah. So the amount of jobs that's available and the amount of demand there is for music, there's a lot of people who don't realize how little it is, and now there's no longer any sort of scaffolding that could help them to cling on to that hope. So I think a lot of people are going to abandon their creative pursuits.
Yeah, it's like really crushing. Like I'm glad we both got at least a couple years in, or a few years in, out of school. Like I can't imagine like having graduated like last summer.
Fuck.
Like or like just being about to finish your degree and then like all this shit happens and
yeah. Good luck, class of 2020.
Yeah. Like I said, I want to believe that people will like accept more radical solutions to reforming the music industry, but I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, greed is the main thing standing in the way.
Yeah. Although I will say, like the one of the things that made me think about the idea of streaming services, like what goes along with what I said about giving artists like stipends enough to live on, is that they would be like exclusive with their particular streaming service. So like your music would only be on Tidal or only be on Spotify, and the person would have to be big enough that people would care.
So how do you get to that point?
Yeah, well, the thing that happened recently that I don't know if you saw, or I guess this is happening like literally tomorrow or in about like 2 or 3 hours, is Joe Rogan, who has like what's like consistently like the number one or two podcast in the world, and has racked up just like millions upon millions of YouTube views and all that stuff for like I think like at this point like 1,500 episodes or something. Tomorrow he's going exclusively on Spotify and taking all the full episodes off of YouTube and off of Apple Podcasts and off of all these other services.
Shit.
Which is and when this got announced like a few months ago, people were like freaking out about it because it's kind of like a game changer. But yeah, that kind of got me thinking about people going like exclusive with streaming services directly.
Yeah, at the moment though, I mean they've kind of done this before with some major pop stars where they get an exclusive deal. Isn't that kind of just like a marketing gimmick, like to get people, I want to listen to, oh my god, I love Katy Perry, I want to listen to her music, but the only place is on Spotify, so I guess I better do it.
I mean, but like if it's literally choice between that or like pirating music, I feel like I don't know, people might be more inclined.
I just think that people don't necessarily recognize the difference between an exclusive deal that some very heavy hitter creator is going to score with these big streaming companies and the kind of experience that people who are just starting to get off the ground are going to experience.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. It's a totally different thing. Yeah, you're right. I mean, but it could go back to that if the streaming service thinks you have actual potential, then they could, if not like totally support you, give you some chunk of change so that you could, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds promising to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting, because I was going to ask you like if we were to consider like universal basic income for artists, how I think a lot of people, especially conservatives, would want to know how are you going to make this so people don't take advantage of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're saying...
And would you consider making weird like beep boop avant-garde music taking advantage of
you hippie trash?
Your tax dollars at work, people.
You're welcome.
So I can create my 48 tet chamber opera about the discovery of the Higgs boson.
Yeah. But you're saying if it's a deal with the streaming companies, that maybe they get to vet what is okay and what is not okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing. I mean, like, you know, there's already the phenomenon of like SoundCloud rappers getting signed because they had some track that blew up, you know, like one track to, you know, a million streams or whatever. So it's like you can create kind of like an organic network on like YouTube or SoundCloud, and then use that as evidence that you know that you're connecting with people.
Interesting.
Of course, that it's still like a 1 in a million or one in a very large number shot that you would, you know, your stuff will go viral like that or gain any traction at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem too, because we talked about how music develops, and I think they say in this article as well, it's never from the top down. It's always the outlying weirdos at the bottom who no one appreciates what they're doing for a long time. They're the ones who get the new ideas that revolutionize the music and the genres.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'll say something very cliche, which is that, like, I mean, this whole pandemic was the first time where I felt like I was living through like a historical event. Because I mean, I don't really remember like 9/11 or anything. I mean, like, I guess like Barack Obama being elected was like the closest thing to a historical event that I feel like I'd witnessed before this.
Yeah, I mean, like, even considering the effect that it has had on the stock market, I think it's the biggest spike in history.
Right. I think
the biggest trough.
I forget if is it worse than the Great Depression? It probably depends how you measure it. I don't think it's quite as bad by a lot of metrics. But,
yeah, it depends how you measure
it. It was probably like the biggest drop. Like in absolute terms or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, fastest drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange to me because it's in some ways changing everything, and in the other ways, my life is almost exactly the same as before.
You lucky bastard.
I suppose so. I mean, I can't complain when I can consider what so many people are going through.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably like define pretty much the rest of our 20s for both of us, which is, I mean, for me, for you who it hasn't like changed anything for, maybe maybe not, but it'll be a thing for the rest of our 20s at least, probably.
Yep. Hooray.
Yeah, I didn't write down like a happy note to finish things on.
Yeah. Happy virus. Wrap it up so that everything's nice. Yeah, I mean, I think some subjects there's only one note to end on.
Yeah.
It's like a 16th century counterpoint. You know, that the note you ended on is just the one note.
Yep.
Can't have a fucking like major chord or what's the jazz one, like the sharp 11 add 6 chord.
Sharp 11. or like minor major 7.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Nope. That just an octave.
Oh, getting fancy, are we? Anyway, thanks for listening, guys.
Join us next time.